Eu achei que você já ia estar dormindo há tipo 1000 anos. Você tem ideia de que horas são? Tô te enchendo. Às vezes a insônia também vem pra mim. É muito ruim, né? Você quer companhia? Eu posso te tentar fazer dormir, relaxar essa cabeça que eu sei que vive preocupada com 1001 coisas. Pode ser? Se você quiser uma coisa que eu gosto de ter comigo pra dormir, eu posso te emprestar só por hoje. É uma almofada dessas bem molinhas, bem gostosas. Essa daqui é redondinha, sabe? Então eu vou pra dormir abraçada. Eu adoro. Não, essa daqui, ela é macia, mas ela ainda assim é um pouquinho firme, sabe? Ela é mais dura, então é mais pra abraçar mesmo, não é pra botar atrás da cabeça. Se você quiser uma de botar atrás da cabeça, eu posso te emprestar também, só por hoje, porque aí você já tá tirando tudo de mim. Essa daqui sim, é toda molinha. Aí dá pra você colocar no pescoço, na cabeça, que ela vai se moldar, sabe? Do formato certinho que você precisa. Vou colocar atrás da sua cabeça, então pode. Pronto. Mais confortável? Confortável de verdade agora. Que bom. De pensar. Outra coisa que eu sei que você gosta, que eu faço, que eu acho que te relaxa, é quando eu escovo seu cabelo. Eu mudei de escova. Não é a que você já conhece. É uma bem velhinha, inclusive, que eu tinha, que eu tenho. Eu adoro mexer no seu cabelo. Vou passar mais aqui. Eu não tava fazendo nada. Eu ia, na verdade, começar a ler um livro. Não, nenhum novo. Tem um livro que eu achei nas minhas coisas que eu li, acho que em 2005. E aí fiquei com saudade da história, acho, sei lá. Quis ler de novo e eu ia começar a ler. Quando eu ouvi uns barulhinhos vindos daqui e eu vim ver se você, sei lá, se era você. Se você quiser, eu posso começar a ler aqui do seu lado. Quer? Eu posso ler o primeiro capítulo. E aí, se você gostar da história, a gente pode combinar de cada noite ler um capítulo. Alguma coisa do tipo. O que você acha? Vou te mostrar. É esse aqui. Conhece? Eu não sei se é da sua época ou se não é da sua época, mas no começo dos anos 2000, acho, saiu esse filme baseado no livro que é Desventuras em Série. Lembrei. Em inglês chama A Series of Unfortunate Events. Em português, Desventuras em Série. E era um filme com o Jim Carrey, tinha a Meryl Streep, tem Emily Browning, acho que esse é o nome dela, bem pequenininha. E que série ela é linda. Depois eu fiquei assistindo toda a filmografia que ela fez depois desse filme, só porque série ela é muito bonita. Enfim. E primeiro, na verdade, eu assisti o filme e depois eu comprei o livro. Posso ler o primeiro capítulo pra gente? Só que tá em inglês, tem problema. É bom que você pratica, né? Então, só pra ficar mais fácil de ler e tudo, eu vou tirar a jacket. Jacket é tipo essa segunda capa que tem aqui, que é de papel. Que na verdade era só pra promover o livro de novo, já que tinha saído o filme. Mas a capa de verdade não é essa, eu vou te mostrar qual é. Então a capa de verdade é essa aqui. Conde Olaf. E é igual aqui a capa, a lombada. Sim, é uma edição muito bonita. O papel também, não sei se você tá vendo ou se você já tá com muito sono. Mas é todo um papel... não sei explicar. E Desventuras em Série realmente é uma série. A história se passa ao longo de vários livros. E o primeiro, que é o que a gente vai começar a ler hoje, pelo menos, o primeiro capítulo até você pegar no sono, é esse aqui, que chama The Bad Beginning. A primeira página tem só uma dedicatória que diz assim: To Beatrice, darling, dearest, dead. Meio. Enfim. Chapter 1. If you're interested in stories with happy endings, you would be better off reading some other book. In this book, not only there is no happy ending, there is no happy beginning and very few happy things in the middle. This is because not very many happy things happened in the lives of the three Baudelaire youngsters. Violet, Klaus, and Sunny Baudelaire were intelligent children, and they were charming and resourceful and had pleasant facial features, but they were extremely unlucky, and most everything that happened to them was rife with misfortune, misery, and despair. I'm sorry to tell you this, but that is how the story goes. Their misfortune began one day at Briny Beach. The three Baudelaire children lived with their parents in an enormous mansion at the heart of a dirty and busy city, and occasionally their parents gave them permission to take a rickety trolley. The word rickety, you probably know, here means unsteady or likely to collapse, along to the seashore, where they would spend the day as a sort of vacation as long as they were home for dinner. This particular morning, it was grey and cloudy, which didn't bother the Baudelaire youngsters one bit. When it was hot and sunny, Briny Beach was crowded with tourists, and it was impossible to find a good place to lay one's blanket. On grey and cloudy days, the Baudelaire had the beach to themselves to do what they liked. Violet Baudelaire, the eldest, liked to skip rocks. Like most 14-year-olds, she was right-handed, so the rocks skipped farther across the murky water when Violet used her right hand than when she used her left. As she skipped rocks, she was looking out at the horizon and thinking about an invention she wanted to build. Anyone who knew Violet well could tell she was thinking hard because her long hair was tied up in a ribbon to keep it out of her eyes. Violet had a real knack for inventing and building strange devices, so her brain was often filled with images of pulleys, levers, and gears, and she never wanted to be distracted by something as trivial as her hair. This morning, she was thinking about how to construct a device that could retrieve a rock after you had skipped it into the ocean. Klaus Baudelaire, the middle child and the only boy, liked to examine creatures in tide pools. Klaus was a little older than 12 and wore glasses, which made him look intelligent. He was intelligent. The Baudelaire parents had an enormous library in their mansion, a room filled with thousands of books on nearly every subject. Being only 12, Klaus, of course, had not read all of the books in the Baudelaire library, but he had read a great many of them and had retained a lot of the information from his readings. He knew how to tell an alligator from a crocodile. He knew who killed Julius Caesar, and he knew much about the tiny slimy animals found at Briny Beach, which he was examining now. Sunny Baudelaire, the youngest, liked to bite things. She was an infant and very small for her age, scarcely larger than a boot. What she lacked in size, however, she made up for with the size and sharpness of her 4 teeth. Sunny was at an age where one mostly speaks in a series of unintelligible shrieks. Except when she used the few actual words in her vocabulary, like bottle, mummy, and bite, most people had trouble understanding what it was that Sunny was saying. For instance, this morning she was saying gag over and over, which probably meant, look at that mysterious figure emerging from the fog. Sure enough, in the distance along the misty shore of Briny Beach, there could be seen a tall figure striding toward the Baudelaire children. Sunny had already been staring and shrieking at the figure for some time when Klaus looked up from the spiny crab he was examining and saw it too. He reached over and touched Violet's arm, bringing her out of her inventing thoughts. Look at that, Klaus said and pointed toward the figure. It was drawing closer, and the children could see a few details. It was about the size of an adult, except its head was tall and rather square. What do you think it is? Violet asked. I don't know, Klaus said, squinting at it, but it seems to be moving right toward us. We're alone on the beach, Violet said a little nervously. There's nobody else it could be moving toward. She felt the slender, smooth stone in her left hand, which she had been about to try to skip as far as she could. She had a sudden thought to throw it at the figure because it seemed so frightening. It only seems scary, Klaus said, as if reading his sister's thoughts because of all the mist. This was true. As the figure reached them, the children saw with relief that it was not anybody frightening at all, but somebody they knew, Mr. Poe. Mr. Poe was a friend of Mr. and Mrs. Baudelaire's, whom the children had met many times at dinner parties. One of the things Violet, Klaus, and Sunny really liked about their parents was that they didn't send their children away when they had company over, but allowed them to join the adults at the dinner table and participate in the conversation, as long as they helped clear the table. The children remembered Mr. Poe because he always had a cold and was constantly excusing himself from the table to have a fit of coughing in the next room. Mr. Poe took off his top hat, which had made his head look large and square in the fog, and stood for a moment, coughing loudly into a white handkerchief. Violet and Klaus moved forward to shake his hand and say, "How do you do?" "How do you do?" said Violet. "How do you do?" said Klaus. "Oo do yow," said Sunny. "Fine, thank you," said Mr. Poe, but he looked very sad. For a few seconds, nobody said anything, and the children wondered what Mr. Poe was doing there at the briny beach when he should have been at the bank in the city where he worked. He was not dressed for the beach. "It's a nice day," Violet said, finally making conversation. Sunny made a noise that sounded like an angry bird, and Klaus picked her up and held her. "Yes, it's a nice day," Mr. Poe said absently, staring out at the empty beach. I'm afraid I have some bad news for you, children." The three Baudelaire siblings looked at him. Violet, with some embarrassment, felt the stone in her left hand and was glad she had not thrown it at Mr. Poe. "Your parents," Mr. Poe said, "have perished in a terrible fire." The children didn't say anything. "They perished," Mr. Poe said, "in a fire that destroyed the entire house. I'm very, very sorry to tell you this, my dears." Violet took her eyes off Mr. Poe and stared out at the ocean. Mr. Poe had never called the Baudelaire children my dears before. She understood the words he was saying, but thought he must be joking, playing a terrible joke on her and her brother and sister. "Perished," Mr. Poe said, "means killed." "We know what the word perished means," Klaus said crossly. He did know what the word perished meant, but he was still having trouble understanding exactly what it was that Mr. Poe had said. It seemed to him that Mr. Poe must somehow have misspoken. "The fire department arrived, of course," Mr. Poe said, "but they were too late. The entire house was engulfed in fire. It burned to the ground." Klaus pictured all the books in the library going up in flames. Now he'd never read all of them. Mr. Poe coughed several times into his handkerchief before continuing. "I was sent to retrieve you here and to take you to my home, where you'll stay for some time while we figure things out. I am the executor of your parents' estate. That means I will be handling their enormous fortune and figuring out where you children will go. When Violet comes of age, the fortune will be yours, but the bank will take charge of it until you are old enough." Although he had said he was the executor, Violet felt like Mr. Poe was the executioner. He had simply walked down the beach to them and changed their lives forever. "Come with me," Mr. Poe said and held out his hand. In order to take it, Violet had to drop the stone she was holding. Klaus took Violet's other hand and Sunny took Klaus's other hand, and in that manner the three Baudelaire children, the Baudelaire orphans now, were led away from the beach and from their